Hey everyone. In this episode we're going to look at pedestrian push button and demand units. We've been given special access to the AGD manufacturing facility in Cheltenham to get an insight to the complexity of these units. I'll be talking to their commercial manager Greg Baker about these. But before we do that, we'll also look at the use of push button units. Although for an in-depth insight about the different variants and their uses, have a look back at Season 1 Episode 16 on the @ITS Now YouTube channel. I'll include a link for this down below. Anyway, I'm Alistair and this is @ITS Now. Since their introduction in 1929, push-button units, or PBUs for short, have been used at signalised crossings around the world for pedestrians to place demand to cross. In the UK, many users are familiar with the older style of units, which include a push-button and a wait indicator, which illuminates to confirm that the traffic signal controller has received the demand. These were fairly rudimentary, consisting of a basic electrical circuit within a rugged enclosure. The design of modern push-button units in the UK is defined in the Traffic Signs Regulations and General Directions, or TSRGD for short. This provides the requirements for the displays used at Puffin, Toucan, Pegasus and PEDEX style crossings. The units fall into two families of near-side and far-side styles. The preference is to use the near-side styles, which provide the advantage of allowing pedestrians to be able to see approaching vehicles whilst waiting for the green walking figure to illuminate. As well as the Puffin design for pedestrians, there is also the Toucan for combined pedestrian and cycle crossings, as well as the Pegasus type for equestrian crossings. Near-side units have seen a bit of a resurgence, referred to as PEDEX crossings, where they are increasingly used with countdown signals, usually in busy urban environments.
Remember to hit subscribe for ITS Now.
Hey everyone. So I'm at AGD today. I talked to Greg Baker about the work they've been doing to improve the functionality of push-button units. AGD was known for taking a Humble's 60s designed demand unit and reimagining it. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, so the only part of a signal that's mandated is, the graphics, the text and the size of the screen. So we had quite a lot of liberty to change the shape of the unit, and we thought we'd modernise that and make it look slightly different, but still in keeping with people knowing what it's used for, which is to help cross the road.
You've made other improvements to the units themselves, like the paint process. I remember that in the past, you used to see them after a few years, they would be white. Are there any other issues that you've been looking at?
Yeah, so we're really lucky enough to work with a foundry that uses a 7-step process that's also used for military grade applications. So we take full advantage of that, and adding UV paint makes our paint really superior finish. And I think that has stood the test of time.
Yeah. They certainly look really bright and vibrant.
Even after years of being out there, that paint finish still remains really robust. So we also continuously monitor the market for the best chipsets and LED performance, and we implement that. So it's a revolving strategy of going, can we use this latest technologies and how do we incorporate that? That is a work that we have to work with the industry because of direct current monitoring in the unit. So we share samples with the controller manufacturers who then, test that build, and then we agree on, that specification could be taken forward to the field. Yeah, so we've just recently taken standard through-hole LEDs and changing them to surface mount, which enables us to use that latest technology. They look slightly different, but we still give that superior performance that you would expect from an AGD near side.
And that's using modern, up-to-date components rather than the slightly older versions that people might use.
So there's always obsolescence in the supply chain, and we need to keep ahead of that. So currently, we're seeing that there's coming to end of life for certain components, so we've moved to that SMT surface mount technology, as that is the one that is most likely to give us longevity in the field.
AGD are known for quality. How do you get about testing your units to achieve the same level of performance?
So all our products are tested, and there's usually sort of four main processes of testing. There's testing at PCB manufacture, and then there'll be another testing as they're being built. At a certain stage, they will be put into what we call burning cabinets. And what that does is that it applies a voltage on and off for at least 4 hours to really stress test those components. So we weed out any weaknesses and be able to harvest the units. And, that stood the testament of time of the amount of returns we get being so small. So we believe that process, including that final test, provides real robust products in the field.
Within the unit, you have a Radix Tactile. How have these been developed since AGD acquired Radix?
So we took the Radix Tactile and we moved it on a generation. The first thing we looked at was using a brushless motor to provide better longevity in the field. But we've also designed a test rig, and in that fact, we've just had to develop a second one to keep up with demand, which tests the torque, the speed, direction of rotation, and the process. So every single one is tested to the same regime that all our other products are now tested to.
Can these be built into the unit at manufacture or sold separately?
Oh yeah, we can provide tactiles for field replacement, but you can also order the tactile to be pre-fitted at manufacture, along with sounders as well. So different part numbers depending on the build. If you want the tactile on the right side or the left side, then it's all achievable.
As Greg said, all the individual modules are tested prior to final assembly of units. Here we can see the components used. The lenses are glued into these using an automated robot. Then once they have fully cured, the rest of the components are added. Each stage is recorded by scanning the module and unit barcodes to provide full traceability through the production and test cycles. In this example, we can see a unit that has audible and tactile indicators installed within the PBU. Traditionally, these used to be installed on site where required, but AGD can install these in the factory, thus simplifying the installation requirements whilst working on the roadside. These are the components used in the assembly of rotating tactile cones, including the brushless electric motor with an integrated gearbox, the mounting bracket, cone and control module. Here we can see an example of tactile indicator being tested prior to being assembled into an enclosure or being shipped out to a client. I also took the opportunity to talk to Greg about their ongoing developments with the Radix Tactile unit to understand why they now have a new option for the design of the rotating tactile cone. So Greg, you've You're now producing different cone shapes for the Radix Tactiles of the Type A and the Type B.
Yeah.
The Type A is a traditional ribbed one that we are all familiar with, but I wonder if you could tell me a bit about the history of the Type B and what it is, please.
So a secondary symptoms to diabetes can be loss of sight and sensation in your fingers. So imagine trying to cross the road blindfolded without, wearing a thick pair of gloves. So we've redeveloped the cone so it's got more fluted edges, so you get a lot more sensation. And from the feedback we're getting, a lot of people would prefer to use this.
Once you see this, it makes a lot of sense. In fact, you do get more tactile response from it than you would with the traditional ribbed one. So are a lot of clients actually taking this new design up now?
It's still early days. We're still sort of showing various people. We did have Gloucestershire's sensory advisory team come in because one of their patients actually had this where they were unable to cross the road due to they couldn't feel the cone. So we've shared that with them. They thought it was a tremendous idea. They've been sort of discussing it with their network of people. So we see that this probably is going to be the future.
And actually, even you said about it would be like wearing a pair of gloves, but if you are wearing a pair of gloves, it will make it a lot easier to feel.
Of course. So yeah, even in the cold, a visually impaired person wearing a pair of gloves would take advantage of this new design as well.
Here we can see the two styles next to each other. The newer Type B is a squarer shaped cone, so it's easier to feel when it rotates compared with the finer grooves on the traditional round cone. Once fully assembled, every unit is then tested. This comprehensive process is computer controlled and includes ensuring that the push button works when pressed on each side. The test process also uses a spectroradiometer to not only measure the level of illumination, but also to ensure that the signals display the correct colour. So this is not only to ensure that the display modules haven't been accidentally swapped, but also to ensure that the LEDs are the correct colour of green or red. And lastly, all the efforts for the design and quality of these units isn't wasted on end users like Chris Goff, who likes the unit so much he did an unpeeling video of one. Thank you to everyone at AGD for talking to me. It was very interesting to go into their factory to see the lengths they go to when making the variety of push button units. So, could I please ask you to subscribe to our channel? It really does help us to bring you further videos about ITS. Thank you again to everyone who has subscribed. This is the last episode in Season 2. We're going to have a bit of a break, but fear not, we have already been filming episodes for Season 3. So look out for those in early 2024. Thanks for watching. See you next time.